Thank you very much. I'm really honored to speak before this forum. And today I'd like to speak briefly about what we are going to do at the coming annual meetings of the IMF and World Bank in Tokyo, which is 40 years, 38 years from previous. The last one, which was held in Tokyo, was 1964, which was the year we joined, Japan joined the OECD as advanced economy. And also it is the time we had Tokyo Olympiad game. So it was a remarkable year for the Japanese history because it was the landmark of our rejoining to the advanced economy member of the world, and also it was a landmark for the recovery of Japan from devastating war time destruction. So this year, the reason we decided to hold the Tokyo meeting in Tokyo, annual meetings in Tokyo, is because last year, just after the earthquake, there was a suggestion from the World Bank IMF whether Japan can accept having this meeting in Tokyo or not, because Egypt, which was supposed to hold this meeting this year, decided not to do that because of turmoil in that country. So even after the earthquake, we thought Japan would be, of course, okay, and this would be a good opportunity for us to show to the world the recovery of our country. And we are a very efficient country, and even with this 1.5 year preparation period, we should be okay to prepare the meeting. That's why we decided to accept the proposal of the IMF to hold this meeting. Regarding the meetings, of course, there are so many meetings in Tokyo, and I rushed to this meeting because there was a reshuffle of a minister the day before yesterday, and I briefed to the minister just before coming, and so I'm still checking what the material I have today. Sorry. So about the schedule, we'll have a meeting starting from 9th of November, and on 10th we will have a Sendai meeting of disaster prevention. It will start from 9th, but 10th will be premier session, including Mr. Kim, of President of the World Bank, and Madame Lagarde of the IMF, and our minister, and several other ministers, and they will go to Sendai to have the visiting the areas of disaster, and also they will have a high-level discussion about how to manage the disaster, and how to mitigate the risk of disaster, and how to make the prevention and risk management important element of development in many developing countries. On 11th, we'll have the meeting for Myanmar, inviting ministers of Myanmar and senior officials of the World Bank, the IMF, and ADB, Asian Development Bank, and UNDP, and our minister will make an opening remark. It is a deputies level meeting, but it is a kind of informal session to share the views about the Myanmar. And the important question is when we can clear areas of Myanmar vis-a-vis Paris Club creditor countries and the ADB and World Bank and Yen Credit, which is a Japanese concession loans to developing countries. How to clear those areas which were dispersed until 1980s before the political difficulty emerged. So we have huge areas in the country. So how to create and how to engage the Myanmar to the macroeconomic reforms, which is guided by the IMF. So this should be a very important forum to kick off the international efforts to re-engage Myanmar. Of course, the US has lifted sanctions gradually. There has been a major step regarding the direct transactions over Myanmar. So if we can start providing substantial assistance to Myanmar, including through the concession loans from Yen Credit, the World Bank, and the ADB, it can be another Vietnam. Vietnam started its reform and re-engagement with the international community in 1990s, but the growth after our development since then is remarkable. And Myanmar has about the same size of population, and it has a great potential. It's really important to support the Myanmar's economic and political reform and development, but at the same time, it would provide opportunities for Asian countries and global community as a whole as a new place of investment and production and any economic activities. So we have, I mean, the government of Japan has led this initiative, and we had, I mean, the Prime Minister Noda and President Tin-Sen had a meeting in April and already expressed the intention to normalize areas and to restart it. But we have been discussing with the other stakeholders like the World Bank, ADB, IMF, price club creditors, how to do this. And so this is a really important meeting for us. Then there will be a G7 meeting, which is G7 meetings of finance ministers and governors of central banks. Of course, the ECB president will come and others will come. It's just a 1 hour and a half meeting from 4 o'clock on 11th. So 4 to 5:30. There will be no statement issued after that. But this is really good opportunity to discuss the world economic affairs, especially the euro, sovereign debt issues and banking issues, the fiscal cliff of the United States, how the US can deal with the fiscal problem, including fiscal cliff and the ceiling of debt. And the slowing down of emerging economies, especially that of China, can be another issue. And Japan's recovery or Japan's fiscal situation can be also discussed. And the oil prices and food prices can be another issue. Of course, this is an informal meeting, and I cannot prejudge what will be discussed by ministers. They can discuss anything. But I think this will provide a very good opportunity to discuss in a very candid way. In my view, G7 is a very important forum. Although G20 is regarded a premier forum, and it is important to have discussions involving emerging economies, G7 still is a gathering of key players. Of course, there are other key players, but regarding financial regulations, regarding euro issues, regarding financial policies, monetary policies, this is really important forum. And on 11th, we will also have a seminar about the health system. This is co-sponsored by the World Bank and JICA and so on. And health has been always a very important issue for the world development community. And it is the important part of a millennium challenge, development goals. And Japan has had the universal coverage of health since 1960, 62 or so. I'm sorry, I should have checked it. But anyway, our medical system is efficient because debt to GDP, medical cost of public sector to GDP ratio is 8% or so, and compared to the United States, it's much lower. And still, we can achieve longevity and very good coverage of health. Of course, we have a lot of problems, challenges in the health system also, but this is a good opportunity to share the experience of Japan with other countries. And on 12th, there will be annual meetings, the premier meeting of annual meetings, but this is mostly about the remarks by the main figures of annual meetings like Madam Lagarde and President Kim, and our prince will make opening remark there. There will be IMF International Monetary and Financial Committees meeting on 12th and 13th Saturday, and there will be a Development Committee meeting on 13th, and there will be East Asian Summit Finance Ministers meeting on 13th in the evening, including Australia, New Zealand, and Russia. So that is the schedule of a meeting next week. So it will be a very busy week. And because of reshuffle of the cabinet just recently, we are now talking with the minister what would be the focus of this meeting and so on. Regarding the substance, I already spoke a lot about the Myanmar, but again, today's world is facing many difficult challenges, and European issues is one of the key. And there has been a lot of progress in the Euro area, including the ESM discussion at the Constitutional Court of Germany. So it will be starting in October, hopefully. It will be already scheduled to start on the 8th. The ESM board meeting will be held on 8th of October. And the total amount of rescue fund, including European Stability Fund and European Stability, EFSF, European Financial Stability, EFSF mechanism. That is a predecessor of the ESM. In total, it is 700 billion euro. So in the war chest, there is already a lot of money there to tackle the issues of peripheral countries. The ECB announced a couple of new initiatives. The most important one is outright monetary transaction, which is a new purchase program of the peripheral countries, but it is conditioned on the use of ESM or EFSF, and that EFSF or ESM is also conditioned on the conditionalities of the policies of countries which receive money. So in essence, the ECB new operation is conditioned on the policies of countries. So there is argument whether this is monetary policy or this is a quasi fiscal policy. So there is a very strong objection by the Bundesbank. But Japan and other non-Euro countries are supporting the idea of supporting the government bond market by using ESM together with the ECB. It would be a very effective tool to mitigate the pressure of the bond market, government bond market in Spain and in Italy and others. So what the world is watching is very strong actions by Euro member countries to implement the needed action for saving, for sustaining economic and monetary union. Actually, Japan has been supporting European efforts by keeping buying the EFSF bond, and most likely will purchase the ESM bond also. So regarding EFSF bond, we have bought about 8% of the total issue. We already purchased 6 billion euro of EFSF bond, which is about 8% of the total issue of the bond. Of course, EFSF bond is guaranteed by Euro states, and over-guaranteed, essentially the issue is guaranteed by AAA countries of Euro members. So it's safe, and but still it's important that we keep buying the EFSF bond, because we can be very stable investors in this bond market. Japan has also supported Euro issues indirectly by deciding to give $60 billion to the IMF to increase the resources of the IMF. We announced this in April ahead of other countries, and Minister Azumi and I we worked very actively to urge other countries to do the same things like Japan. The total amount which increased for the IMF is $460 billion, about $460 billion, out of which Japan's contribution is $60 billion. So the IMF resources has been increased since Lehman crisis. Before that, the total amount which can be used to support member countries is like $250 billion. Then it was increased to about 750. Then it is now again increased by 450. Let me check the number again. I mean, so in any case, what is important is the Euro system has the resources to tackle the difficulty of peripheral countries, and the IMF should be well equipped with the resources when it is needed to support the countries. But generally speaking, the IMF has been the institution for supporting emerging and developing countries since the currency system of the world became a floating system instead of fixed exchange rate. So from 1970s, the focus of the IMF was Latin American countries, Africa, and then transition countries like former Soviet countries, Soviet Union, and China and others. China has never, China has never borrowed from the IMF, but the transition country has been the very important borrowers. But now we face a very new challenge that the advanced economies like European countries must have access to the IMF, and this is a really big burden for the IMF. If the Greece is already a big economy compared to other emerging economies, so how to efficiently, effectively use the IMF to this European challenge is a very important, difficult issue. So before the Lehman crisis, the total resource of IMF was 250, and not much was committed for lending to member countries, because only Turkey, and I don't remember precisely, but the borrowing countries was so limited. That's why what we discussed about the IMF was how to streamline, how to reduce the stuff and so on. But then the resources of IMF was increased by borrowing from countries. It became $740 billion, out of which 330 billion is already committed to Greece and other European countries and others. So remaining is 400. And then there'll be $450 billion of new resources. So we have expanded the operation of the IMF, I mean, the resources of the IMF. That is about Euro, and about the US, and the fiscal cliff is a very important issue, and it's a difficult issue in the midst of presidential election. China and the emerging economies have a slowdown, and especially China has a slowdown because of its dependence on export to Europe. And the share of Europe in Chinese export is 20% or so. To the Japan, it is 8% or so. So the US is something like 15. So for China, the export to Euro is very important, and it is now being affected by the problem in Europe. And China stimulated the economy after Lehman by 400 billion yuans. 4000億 400 billion yuans stimulus package ですかね。4000じゃないか。60兆だから。I'm sorry. I must check it again. 4兆ユーロか。400 billion. Yeah, that's right. 400 billion. I'm sorry. 4 trillion yuan. 4 trillion yuan. That's right. 4 trillion renminbi's fiscal stimulus after Lehman. The question is what kind of policy tools China will implement in this slowdown. When there is a shift of transfer of leadership in the party. And in my view, there are scopes for fiscal stimulus and also monetary easing. But it looks China is a little bit more prudent than before, because China is now pursuing more balanced economy with the higher ratio of consumption. So if the stimulus is provided focusing on investment, it's not in line with the needed reform, needed transformation of the economy. And also it might induce another inflationary pressures, especially on real estate and so on. The local community, if the investment was made by borrowing of local authorities, it would invite problems of bad debts of local authorities. So there are many issues regarding this stimulus package. So when I visited China last week, I talked to the senior economist of the government-related research center and so on, and I have a sense that they are more prudent than before, but still they have to achieve the growth target of 7.5% for this year. So I think they will do it. So I stop here, and I would like to answer to the question as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nakao. Before Q&A, I have an announcement to make. During the annual meetings, there will be a special event, Sendai Dialogue. And this event is to highlight lessons learned from the great East Japan earthquake and tsunami, and to adopt them as guidance for comprehensive disaster risk management in at-risk countries. FPCJ will have another briefing on this special event, Sendai Dialogue, from 4 o'clock tomorrow. The briefer will be Mr. Taniguchi, the World Bank's special representative to Japan. And please do not miss this briefing also. Now, the Q&A session. Would you please raise your hand, and after the microphone is ready, give us your name and affiliation before you ask one question at a time. And one more thing, this briefing is strictly for the foreign journalists. So embassy representatives and FPC supporting members, please refrain from raising your hand. Thank you. Okay, じゃあこの先頭の方からいきましょう。
Hello, Henry Trix from The Economist. We were all surprised, I think, by the announcement that there was a new finance minister 1 week before the IMF, and it sounds like you have your work cut out explaining to him what he needs to do next week. I wonder if you can tell us what are the priorities for Japan in this. What are the issues that the new finance minister must argue in favor of, and how much will the fact that Mr. Azumi, who did so much, as you say, to raise the coffers of the IMF, how much will his absence complicate matters?
Of course, it's a little bit challenge for us that we have a new minister now. But in any country, in any government, even if a minister is changed, there is a consistency of administration, and new minister is a very capable man, and we don't feel any major difficulty. Of course, we must explain is not really good word, but we must report him a little bit closer what will be discussed, but there is no major inconsistency or challenges. But I think Mr. Minister will speak about the Japanese economic situation, and it is recovering from the disaster, and because of consecutive stimulus package, I mean reconstruction, consecutive budgeting for the cost for reconstruction. It is a total about 19 trillion yen, which is about 4% of GDP. These expenditure will be spent is now being spent, and it would provide so 19 trillion yen is for 5 years, and we have already budgeted 17 trillion yen, which is about 3.6% of GDP, and that is now being disbursed. So it would provide a lot of stimulus to the economy, and the first quarter of this year recorded very high growth of 5.3% annualized based. And the second quarter was not so good, but 0.7% annualized. But this fiscal year, we are expecting that we can achieve around 2% of growth. And according to IMF new estimate, it's not announced yet, so I wouldn't mention the clear number, but it's in line with the Japanese government estimate. This year probably will have higher than 2% growth according to the new IMF estimate. That is one of the highest among advanced economies. So the minister will discuss the situation of recovery in Japan, and also he would mention our efforts to consolidate our fiscal issues, and it is about the consumption tax rise of from 5% to 8% in 2014 and to 10% in 2015. And together with this tax reduction increase, we must examine further how we can reform our social security system. So he will discuss the importance of the continued efforts of fiscal consolidation, which is a major challenge not only for Japan but for other economies, including the United States, and obviously for other European countries. So he will mention about it. And Myanmar, once again, is another issue he will discuss. And about the IMF, we think it's very important to implement the governance and quota reform of the IMF, which was already decided in 2010, but because of some major economies which didn't ratify this yet, including the United States, it has not been implemented. So we are already starting discussing the next quota increase of quota and governance reform of the IMF, but we should first implement we already decided in 2010. About the development, he will discuss the importance of crisis risk, disaster risk management or prevention. And in Sendai, there will be a discussion about it and how to include the elements of disaster management in the development strategy of developing countries. If we can add some elements in the development strategy or certain public works, it would be very effective tool to prevent or to mitigate the damage of the disaster. One case is one highway near the coast of Tohoku was elevated a little bit, and because of that, the flooding didn't go over the highway, and so because of that elevation, many lives were saved. So that kind of thing can be discussed about disaster. About poverty reduction, although we paid so much attention to the European issues, we shouldn't forget about the development and poverty reductions of poor countries. Regarding Africa, Africa is now growing much faster than before, not just because of resource prices, but because of their stronger governance and efforts. So we should continue to support Africa, and Japan will host Tokyo International Conference for African Development next year, inviting so many presidents and ministers from African nations. So that is one thing he'll mention. So there are so many things. I'm sorry, I spoke too much, but those are things he'll discuss.
young lady.
But by the way, Mr. Azumi's absence, as I said, he has been a very, active figure to support the IMF, and it is really his initiative which made our contribution very timely and effective. Of course, I've been working with him, but his decision toward the end of announcement was really crucial, because other countries hadn't announced it, and there was a risk that Japan alone, except Euro countries, would announce it, and in that case, we can be criticized by our taxpayers. Why must we so generous to European countries when no other countries really support this idea? So it was, in the end, really his personal, initiative. But again, even if he already retired from the minister, the government function remains intact, and there will be no problem.
On the Myanmar conference, Kyoko Asega with AFP, the Myanmar conference, there were reports that the IMF and the World Bank, other organizations, will resume loans to Myanmar or extend it in the future further in the conference. Do you think there will be any announcement about that?
Thank you very much. I shouldn't prejudge what the Asian Development Bank and World Bank would announce. But we are now discussing how to clear areas of the ADB and World Bank, and their that outstanding. Areas is $500 million for the Asian Development Bank and $400 million for the World Bank, and we are planning to clear it by giving a bridge loan to Myanmar from the Japanese banks, and Myanmar can use that money to repay to the ADB and World Bank, and then areas is cleared. Then right away, those World Bank and the ADB would provide the new concessional loans to Myanmar, and Myanmar can repay the bridge loan to Japanese banks. So by doing that, essentially the areas is transformed to the new program concessional loans from those institutions. And then, if it is a case, it's just the change of transformation of areas to new loans. But by doing that, areas is cleared, and then the ADB and the World Bank can provide new project loans or program loans to Myanmar. We hope it will start next year. But at this moment, I don't know what kind of announcement they will make. Regarding Japanese yen credit, the amount of outstanding areas is much more, including late interest. It's like $6 billion. So it's a huge amount. So compared to the World Bank and $6 billion. So it's huge. But by clearing this, we can start providing new loans to Myanmar, and I hope it will start next year also.
Okay, next question, Mr. Kohling, please.
Martin Kölling, German Financial Daily Handelsblatt. In the last part of your speech, you mentioned China. You visited China. Today there was the news that Chinese banks are dropping out of the meeting. What can you say about it? What have you heard? And what is your position on that?
Thank you very much. Our relation with China is very important. China is number one destination of export and the most important place of sources of our imports. And for China also, Japan is a very important trading partner. And also regarding investment, Japanese investment is a very important part of foreign direct investment. So the relation between China economically and in trade area is crucial. And also regarding cultural relation and students studying in Japan, students studying in China, the Japanese students studying in Japan. There are many people who study in Japan, for instance. If my memory is correct, about 80,000 Chinese students study in Japan out of 140,000 students, foreign students in Japan. So our relation is very close. So what I can say is the political difficulty is not preventing this kind of important relation between China and Japan. And of course, because of recent incidents, some Chinese visitors may have decided not to come to Japan. But regarding the representative from the Ministry of Finance of China or the People's Bank of China, we haven't heard any canceling or whatever. About the private sector, we don't have direct information, but we know that there can be some cancellations of visiting, and it's really disappointing. I'm very sorry to hear that, because especially because I myself have been promoting the financial cooperation between China and Japan. Prime Minister Noda and Premier Wen last December announced the enhanced financial cooperation, including bond issues in both countries using our own currencies, direct transaction between renminbi and yen, not going through the dollar, and it already started. We decided to purchase a government bond each other. China has already invested in the government bond of Japan, but Japanese government has been, Japan has been already provided certain ceiling quota from Chinese government regarding the purchase of Chinese renminbi denominated government bond purchased by the foreign reserve of the Ministry of Finance. So by doing that, we can start mutual holding of government bond. China already has it, but if we start buying it, it becomes mutual, and our information sharing about the how we buy, hold our reserves, it will be promoted. So these things is really important, because our trade relationship and investment relationship has been enhanced. But still, we have been using dollar for the transactions of trade and investment. But if we can use our own currencies like yen and renminbi further, we don't need to rely on dollar liquidity. And it's good in the case like after the Lehman crisis. Just because the dollar is in shortage because of a problem in the financial sector of the United States, we had the difficulties of mobilizing, financing dollar liquidity, and it prevented smooth transaction of trade and investment among Asian countries. So I'm not saying that we should aim at the non-dollar system in Asia, but I believe that the US dollar will remain the single most important, or the single key, most important key currency in the international community for foreseeable future, and large majority of our foreign reserve, about $1 trillion is in dollar, and we still believe that the U.S. asset is very safe, liquid, good asset. But still, it's important for Asian countries to start using our own currencies for the trade and so on. So we have myself, our government has promoted this idea, and the agreement between prime ministers last December was very important landmark for this. And I myself visited China many times to discuss these issues, and there has been a trust and good cooperative relation, and I hope this can be maintained. And when I visited China, I don't want to mention who I met, and I don't want to mention whether I met the government official or not, but my strong belief is we should continue to do this. And if situation is stabilized, we should promote this kind of initiative even further.
Next, please. Okay, Rory-san.
Anthony Rowley, Singapore Business Times and Emerging Markets. Minister, when you talked about the G7, you didn't mention exchange rates, but given the aggressive quantitative easing that's going on in various countries at the moment, which is seen by some as being a kind of hidden form of currency manipulation, I understood that this would be on the agenda of the G7. Can you say whether Japan will be raising the question of exchange rates? And I think you said there will be no statement after the G7 meeting, which is unusual. There's normally a communique at the end. So why will there be no statement, and will there be a press briefing at the end of the meeting?
About the exchange rate issue, in several previous G7 meetings, we issued statements, including the language about the exchange rate. But this time, I don't want to say whether we'll discuss it or not, because it's not. I don't want to mention what is the agenda, but the agenda is a more broad issue, like a global economy and international finance. Some ministers might discuss it, but there is a chance that there is no discussion. But I say this. This is our strong belief that recent yen's appreciation is one-sided, and it doesn't reflect the real economic fundamentals of the Japanese economy. And when we are making efforts to recover from last year's disaster, and when we try to get out of a deflationary spiral over 20 years of slump, this is not really productive. So in that regard, the Japanese government stance remains the same even during the transition of ministers, that any excessive movement of exchange rate, if there is one, will take decisive actions if needed. That is our stance. So I don't want to say whether we'd raise this issue at the G7 or not. About the G7 statement, since the G20 was decided to be a premier forum for the international financial issues, not all G7 has issued a statement, and in April this year we had a G7, but there was no statement. It was short and very informal meeting with a candid discussion. So it's not peculiar that we don't issue a statement. Minister will have a press briefing, or burasagari, or what is in English, but he will say something about the G7. And there will be TV camera at the beginning of G7. TV broadcasting.
Okay, next one. Mr. Sushiro.
My name is Richard Susilo from Indonesia Economic Newspaper Magazine. I would like to refresh your statement regarding the yen currency on our trading. Are you suggesting us that we should use for Japan ASEAN trading, we should use the ASEAN and yen currencies rather than US dollar? And do you think this matter will be put it on the agenda of this international meeting? Thank you.
Generally speaking, it's better to avoid too much heavy dependence on the dollar, because our trade between Asian region countries, intra-region trade and investment is so large. So if we can use our local currencies, I don't know whether the yen should be local or not, but it's better that we can use our own currencies to the extent it is possible. So that's why we promote the idea of Asian bond market initiative, especially in local currencies. So instead of depositing money in the US bank and borrow money from the US bank, it's better to issue Indonesian government bond in local currency, and then the investors in Asia would buy it. So that's an Asian bond market initiative. And regarding currency for trade and investment, we have been promoting yen's usage in those trade, and 40% of our export is in yen denominated, and 25% of our import is yen denominated. So it's a kind of half success. But generally speaking, it's better that we promote the more usage of local currencies, whether it is investment or trade. But again, dollar is such a liquid and convenient currency, and the financial market of the US is so large, and for multilateral enterprises, it's easier to manage risk of exchange rate by keeping the dollar in the center. So it's easy to say that we should change the dollar centered system. So many people, including French president or the Chinese governor, has mentioned it, but in reality, dollar is such an important international currency. But within that limit, it's better to try to use local currencies as much as possible.
Okay, so OK。
じゃあ4人をパッとその4人だけにしてください。
OK、わかりました。じゃあ
割と短く答えます。
OK、he will receive 4 more persons raising hand now. OK, from Mr.
So I just wonder if there's going to be any discussion with South Korea about the renewal of the currency swap arrangement during either this meeting or within the next few weeks.
So we expanded our dollar, swap arrangement between Korea and Japan last fall from $13 billion to $70 billion, including the arrangement between the Foreign Reserve of Japan and the Korean Central Bank and Bank of Japan and the Korean Central Bank. This is by the request of Korea, because the Korean won was attacked last fall. So it was needed to replenish the reserve of Korea, and we decided to support the idea. We decided to do this by the request of the Korean government last fall. It's good also for Japan, because we should support the Korean economy. If a Korean economy has a problem, it would have a bad impact on the Japanese economy, Asian economy, and so on. But also, it's better to avoid the collapse of Korean won. So it's a mutual benefit. But now there is some difficulty, political difficulty, and the Korean economic situation looks a little bit better. But in any case, we haven't decided this yet. There was a news report this morning by at least Japanese media that there has been no request again from Korean to renew it, and we wouldn't renew this if there is no request. We haven't made such a decision at all yet. It's open question, and toward the end of this month, which is the deadline of expansion of, it was expanded from 13 to 70. So can we return to 13? That is a question, but it is still an open question, and we will consider this issue from a comprehensive, perspective.
Okay, specially permitted question number 2. Please, before you ask, please identify yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. This is Ben McClanahan from the Financial Times. It's a very quick technical question. It's about hosting rights. As host of this conference, what power does Japan have to shape the agenda?
Agenda of what? Agenda of the whole this
The agenda that we see before us. What influence has Japan had over that?
Well, the hosting country doesn't have a big say. Decisive function to decide the agenda, but we have consulted with the IMF and the World Bank what should be the major, underlying theme of these annual meetings. But G7 is now chaired by the US because this is the year of the chair for the United States, and the IMF annual, the World Bank annual meetings itself, and also IMFC meeting, development committee meeting. Those are the meeting of the IMF and the World Bank. So we don't have a specific power to do that, but we have been consulted, especially regarding the underlying theme of this annual meeting. One element is recovery from the disaster, and another is the new tema. Global challenge and global solution is the main theme. That is, and but the Myanmar meeting, that is the whole genuine Japanese initiative. If we have, we didn't say that, it wouldn't happen.
Okay, the third question.
My name is Stefano Carrer for the Italian Economic Daily newspaper, Il Sole 24 Ore. I'm curious to ask you, what's your sensation when you see the euro debt crisis from the point of observation of the Ministry of Finance of Japan? I mean, when you see some countries forced to raise taxes and cut expenses sharply at the same time when the private sector is deleveraging, do you have a feeling of deja vu? I mean, when Japan did exactly so, the fiscal situation would not necessarily improve because the economy got weaker. I mean, the question is, so you said that Japan is expecting strong and bold action from Europeans to cope with this situation. Is it correct to guess that you are also suggesting some flexibility in implementing drastic measures in specific countries?
How to solve European issues should be decided by the European countries themselves. And our experience is not necessarily about the fiscal consolidation. In 1990s, we implemented so much public works, and also we had consecutive tax reductions of a very large size. That's why we have now such a large gap in the expenditure and revenue. So we have been very flexible, especially in 1990s, and also monetary policy was very flexible. The BOJ started the idea of a long commitment of a low interest rate, and also they started quantitative easing in addition to the rate cut. And they started the innovative asset purchase like REIT or the stocks and so on. So we have been flexible, but what I said about fiscal consolidation is today we have such a huge debt, and it's not a sound idea to keep it. So we should start addressing these issues together with the growth strategy. About Europe, because Europe is a single currency and you cannot adjust the exchange rate, and you have a single monetary policy. So the solution to European issues can be different from that of Japan. So I don't have any specific views about. I can have my own personal view about the problem of euro, but yeah, the essence is that because you have a single monetary system, union, there is a unique challenge, and there should be unique solution. That is what I can say.